So you have a startup idea and you want to take that idea and raise venture capital money, maybe an angel investment to get your idea off the ground and scaling. Well, as a prior VP of sales who's worked for venture backed startups, I can say here's a few things that you have to consider before you go into these conversations to ensure that it makes sense for you to raise money. And if so, what is the most sustainable way to ensure that your product gets off the ground and actually scales? Listen, the first thing you have to understand is that when you get involved with venture capital, you're giving away parts of your business. You're literally giving them equity. And so, as you do that more and more and raise more capital, you're giving more and more of your business away. So, if you do have an exit or you want to pull out money from your business, you're going to have less money to do that, or less equity or less liquidity within your business to be able to do it. So, that's one thing you have to consider. The second thing is these venture capital relationships, it's like marriage. You don't just fall into the first one that says yes. You really have to be careful in choosing those relationships wisely. Why? Well, just kind of like how you see on Shark Tank, as cheesy as it might sound, you don't just go for the person who gives you the most money. You have to really evaluate within these venture capital relationships what makes the most sense. If you bring on a co-founder, you don't just bring someone who has, the same competencies as you or background. What do you want to do when you bring on, you give someone ownership, or you bring on a co-founder, you bring on venture capital, someone who is investing in your business to see it grow, but also is taking an equity stake from you? You have to ensure that the relationship is reciprocal. What does that mean exactly? Well, if you bring on a venture capital company, you have to ensure that like they know your business, they know your industry, and they can actually add value to you. They're not just giving you money and then just going to veto the things that you decide to run with. That's a really difficult situation that I've seen many CEOs and founders get into. Is they raise money, and then the venture capital company, all they really do is just shoot down any of the founders' ideas and really string them out and make them feel like so overwhelmed and like they can't do what they want to within their business to see it grow. And then oftentimes these founders will get into these venture capital relationships and they don't have their product refined. They don't have scale actually showing to consistently be growing. And then they inject cash into the situation and they just burn through cash and burn themselves out and then ruin that venture capital relationship. So the second part you have to really understand is not only choose your venture capital companies wisely, but also ensure that like you should really focus on bootstrapping for like 95% of you out there. Why? One, you may not even need to raise capital. It may make more sense to just bootstrap this thing and to make sure that your product is actually solving something before you inject cash into the situation, as well as you can grow it profitably on your own. And if you can do that, then that's the better situation because you may not need venture capital money. Or the second thing is if you get into the venture capital conversations, at least you can show that you're sustainably growing and you have a little bit more leverage than just saying, hey, we have a really good idea and we've seen some nominal success. The startups who close their doors are the ones who don't actually get all that figured out, that's scaling on the front end and see consistent growth. They get inconsistent results. They think that they just raise money and get more people involved, that it'll grow on its own. And it's very naive. And most of those startups are the ones who fail. But the ones who really focus on bootstrapping and getting at a really good place of compounding growth first before they even have those conversations are put in a very much better situation to grow because they know exactly what they need to do, what levers they need to pull to see it compound grow, as well as it puts you in a better situation when you're talking to a venture capital or investor so that you have more leverage because you are different than the other guys, right? So again, really evaluate how far can you get on your own with bootstrapping and self-funding? Do you really need venture capital? Or are you just falling on that because that's what you've always heard? And then if you do raise venture capital, ensure that you're at a really good place to where you have more leverage, that you have compounding growth if you really do need it. And choose your venture capital partners wisely. Do they add value to your business or are they just handing you cash? And if they're just going to hand you cash, then I'd really find some other better situation where they can help you grow. They've been there before, they understand your industry, and they can really add value beyond the cash they're giving.